Good evening, folks, and thank you for joining us. We are going to allow a few moments for everyone registered for tonight's session to join the webinar. As we are waiting, just a quick reminder that tonight's session is being recorded. During tonight's session, please feel free to utilize the question and answer feature that is located at the bottom of your screen. We just remind that you to not share any personal information. You may submit questions anonymously, and we will have a Q&A portion at the end of tonight's panel to ask questions live on air. And we also have staff behind the scenes that will be able to answer questions offline. All right, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening, your afternoon, your night, or your morning from wherever you're joining us to partake in this year's first virtual session for Homecoming Family Weekend at UC San Diego. My name is Dan Perez, and I have the pleasure of just hosting this session and connecting our families with the wonderful staff and students that have partaken in the study abroad opportunities with the study abroad office here at UC San Diego. And I would want to clear the way for tonight's moderator so we can get to the panel, which is the main event. And tonight's moderator is Jay Minert, who is the Director of Outreach and Academic Engagement at the Study Abroad office here at UC San Diego. So I'd like to bring up Jay so he can introduce the panelists and we can get going.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, and welcome everyone. As Dan said, my name is Jay Minert. I've been with the office in study abroad for actually 10 years, which is incredible to say. I've loved it here. I've loved helping students realize their goals of studying abroad. We have a lot of great programs that we offer at UC San Diego, and this is one of my favorite events because parents and family members are one of, if not the most important resources and support systems for our students. We really love to connect with parents and family. We want you to be on board with this process. We want you to be knowledgeable of this process. And so tonight's event is exciting. We actually have 4 students who are returnees. They all have studied abroad, and they're going to kind of share their perspectives with us of how their study abroad experience went, and all of that good stuff. And so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pivot over to having them introduce themselves. And we have some questions that we've kind of thought of that we'll kind of go through. And we encourage you to ask any questions as well. Hopefully we'll get to all of the questions. If not, no worries. We can hopefully get you information if you would like to reach out to our office. But I'd like to just first encourage all of you, if you're interested in studying abroad or you're a student studying abroad, really encourage you to check out our website. It's studyabroad.ucsd.edu. It has a lot of great information. It covers all of our different programs, and your student is definitely encouraged to start the process, even if they're not ready to go abroad immediately, just to kind of peek in on what we're all about so that they can kind of be informed and start thinking about this as an opportunity. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our four student panelists. We have Moya, Enrico, Shreya, and Rebecca. And I'm going to ask that each of them unmute and turn on their video to introduce themselves. And I'd like each of you to just quickly introduce yourself and maybe say where you studied abroad and mention which program and how long you studied abroad. And so just by randomness, but my whole Zoom tiles here, I see Moya first. So Moya, would you like to start us off?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. My name is Moya. I went abroad just this last summer to Edinburgh, Scotland. I went for 5 weeks as part of a global seminars program.
Thank you. Shreya.
Hi, my name is Shreya. I studied abroad in Paris this last summer, and this was a part of a Jazz in Paris global seminar, and it was 5 weeks long.
Awesome. Rebecca?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Brambilla. I studied abroad this last year for the full academic year, and I did UCEAP Bologna.
Awesome. And Enrico?
Hello, everyone. My name is Enrico Del Rosario, and I did the Jazz in Paris Global Seminar, which was a 5-week long program during summer session 1.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you all. So yeah, as three of our panelists mentioned, they did the Global Seminars program, and then Rebecca did the UCEAP program. And we also have other programs that we offer. We have a Global Exchange, which is a bilateral partnership program. And then we have third-party programs. If you've ever heard of things like Semester at Sea or things like that, that's not affiliated with UC San Diego directly. We have those programs as well. And so noting your all experiences, three of you did global seminars, which are 5-week long programs in the summer. And then Rebecca did a whole year. Woo! I would like to know kind of why. Let's ask the question of why. Why did you study abroad? How did your decision tie into any of your goals, like personal, academic, or career? So Enrico, would you like to start us off with that?
Sure, yes. In in correlation with like my professional goals, I guess I'd say, first of all, let me start off with my major. My major is cognitive science with a specialization in language and culture. So I felt going to Paris, France would be a perfect place to go because it's so dense with language and culture. I mean, French being a Romance language and all. And then culture that includes like the food, just different things that you can immerse yourself in. And why I studied abroad, I feel like I personally just wanted to study abroad to just expand on my worldview, explore new things, try new things, and place myself in a new environment. Get to know like a new ambiance, and just meet new people and have new experiences. Try new foods. That's a very important one. I really love food. So if there are any food lovers out there, study abroad is definitely for you. But yeah, I feel like that really just encapsulates every reason why I studied abroad.
Awesome. Thank you, Enrico. Rebecca, what about you?
So I'm an international business major. So one of the requirements is to take a language. I chose to do Italian just randomly because I have an Italian last name and I have no idea why. So I just decided to do Italian, and then I fell in love with it, ended up doing 2 years of full Italian. And I was initially just going to do 6 months abroad in Bologna, Italy. But then I applied to a bunch of scholarships, and the ones I got were for the full year. So I decided to just go for the full year.
Wow, right on. And Rebecca is one of our brave souls that does the full year. For those of you who are wondering, we are on the quarter system, as you probably know. And so most students, if you look at our data, most students choose summer. 3 of our 4 panelists chose summer. And fall semester programs are second in popularity just because of fall semester. You only have to be gone from La Jolla for fall quarter usually. Spring semester, it's both winter and spring quarters. And then a few brave souls like Rebecca do choose the year. And so we have a lot of different options in terms of timing for that. Shreya, what about you?
There are a couple reasons why this program was like such a big deal for me. So for one, when I was like scrolling through a list of study abroad like options and saw the global seminars, I saw jazz in Paris as one of the options. And that was such a big like exciting thing for me because I had been playing jazz in high school and I'd been studying it in that, I guess, arena, or I can't think of the word, but I'd also been learning French in middle school and high school. So jazz in Paris was like the perfect combination. It's a perfect fusion for me to fulfill that personal goal of like actually exploring those interests. And I also really wanted to do a study abroad like program, at least once in college, because I wanted the experience of not just going abroad, but going abroad with other students like me who are all eager to explore a place and meet new people and have a different experience academically and socially. So those two like really drew me into the program.
All right, thank you, thank you. And Moya, what's your thoughts on why study abroad? Why did you decide to do it?
Well, I wanted to go to study abroad at some point in college, as well, just like Shreya, because it's such an amazing experience and it's so like, it's what everyone really talks about, like, oh, I went studying abroad somewhere. So the idea had always sort of been floating around for me. And then my choice to go study abroad actually had very little to do with my major. I'm a physics major and the courses that I took were in humanities. But they were two of my requirements for my college. So not my major, but my college requirements. And it was the humanities series, which if you are ever going to be in Revelle, you'll know all about that. But essentially it's 5 humanities courses. And whilst I was in one of them, the professor who runs the global seminar that I did came and talked to the class and he said, oh, you can just come and do 2 of your humanities requirements in Scotland. And I thought, absolutely, that sounds great. And then it ended up actually sort of advancing my schedule enough to the point where I'm now able to graduate 2 quarters early because I got those 2 requirements out of the way. So yeah.
Nice, right on. Thank you. Yeah, and it's incredible. With study abroad, we find that a lot of students have to plan for it, obviously, and so they do a lot of work with their advisors. And we ran some data a couple of years ago now, before COVID, but we found that students who study abroad tend to graduate at the same time or even faster than students who don't study abroad, which we found pretty cool, just because of the planning and the fact that you often will do it in the summer and kind of do those extra courses. So thank you for mentioning that, Moya. So when you think about study abroad, a lot of times people get excited and they think, what do they think about, right? What are highlights that they imagine, and you all went to some fantastic places. I've been fortunate to have been in Edinburgh, have never been to Paris, but I do want to, join somebody's suitcase and do the Jazz in Paris program at some point. And then Bologna is an amazing spot too. And so I'm wondering from you four, what can you name a couple of top highlights from your experience abroad? And it can be anything ranging from personal highlights, anything academic related, anything that you found cool with your courses, maybe something that you found that connected well with what your career interests are. Any top highlights you'd like to share? Shreya, would you like to go?
Yeah. I have a couple, but I'll just name one for now. So obviously like studying abroad, it's a very big thing and you'd expect a lot of major events to happen while you're at a foreign place. But for me, one of my favorite memories was just this one day I went through, and it was a lot of small experiences, but they kind of accumulated to this really interactive experience I had with the people around me. So there was this one day, I was actually with Enrico for this one, but we had our class. So in Paris, the public transportation system is really cool. It's really efficient. You can get to anywhere you want. Don't need a car. It's really safe. So we had a day of class. It was 5 hours, I think 3 days a week. Right after class, we were trying to figure out what to do. And we noticed that there was this modern art museum that's really close to our place. So we walked there, we passed by all these little like thrift shops and stores that had like refreshments, all these things. And we went in because we were just planning on like going through the museum and looking at cool things, which by the way, these museums are all over Paris. But what else would you expect? So we were exploring the art museum and looking at all the free exhibits. And we stumbled upon this little studio. And this was a studio that we did not know this right away, but it was completely free, open for anyone to use. It was mainly students that were in there, but they had VR headsets, they had claymation, they had like video stuff going on, they had these computers, and there were just so many things we could do. And we stepped in and we were like, wow, this is crazy. So one of the people we were with, he had experience in like synthesizing like audio and like doing music stuff using GarageBand or other things like that. So we in our little group, we kind of just sat around computers and we were kind of playing with that. And Enrico and our mutual friend ended up like coming out with a tune that they produced in like, I don't know, an hour or something. But that was really cool because we actually got to talk to other people in the studio and the other locals. And after that, we left. We got ice cream. We had a jazz concert that day because we went to jazz clubs every week as a part of the program. So we got to meet so many people and kind of explore this one part of Paris in so many different ways. And I just remember like it being an amazing day. I was like telling my parents about it afterwards. But we got to talk to people, we got to see different things, and I just really loved having that. So I think that's a great way to like characterize what the program was for me.
Nice, right on. Wow, now I really want to go on this Jazz in Paris program. Thank you, Shreya. Enrico, you also did Jazz in Paris with Shreya. What was your sort of top highlights that you can think of?
Oh my goodness, like where do I even start? I think first of all, depending on what your professor has planned for you, that really depends on your timeline and like when classes are, when classes start and end, and then what you can really do like for the rest of your experience. My professor, actually Shreya and I both took his class winter quarter last year, and we really loved how the course went. And I mean, he sent an email, like an all call saying, oh, I'm taking some students to Paris to learn about jazz. I was like, that's really crazy. The professor, his name is Professor David Borgo, and he just provided so much great commentary about how jazz music, the African diaspora of jazz music actually came in World War II. So jazz music, Black music in general, came from the United States, from like, what are they called? In New Orleans. I forgot what they're called. But I can't really think of it right now. But anyway, it came from there, and it was brought to Paris during World War II. And I don't know, like I thought it was just really great to learn about that, because there are just so many things in history that are written out because they're seen as too like taboo, or they're seen as too like, oh, like, this information is sensitive. But no, like this is stuff that we need to learn about. And I think that's one of the highlights personally, because from an academic perspective, I know my school didn't offer any ethnic studies courses, or we didn't have an ethnic studies requirement until now. I know they do now have an ethnic studies requirement to graduate high school. But it's really great that this course, like we were able to learn about something that is usually not talked about, and it's very much silenced, and that's very frustrating. But anyway, that's an academic standpoint. Just from a personal standpoint, oh my goodness, class was 3 days out of the week, so we had a 4-day weekend, and we could just explore. We can go out. The nightlife was amazing. I mean, even like our lectures consisted of going to jazz clubs, and at the jazz clubs we had a listening journal, and in that listening journal, I don't know if I have it on me right now, but in that listening journal, we could write anything really. I chose to take a stream of consciousness perspective in terms of writing. But it was just so cool. We got to listen to the music and really like absorb and like encumber ourselves in that environment, and just let our fingers and our hands do the job in terms of writing what we heard and saw, and even drawing pictures. And then we submitted that at the end of our experience. And I don't know, it was just so amazing, all the things that you can do, explore, eat. Yeah, there are too many highlights, too many highlights.
Right on, right on. And I appreciate you mentioning how study abroad, you're taking classes, definitely it's academic, but a lot of what you do in study abroad, a lot of what you learn actually happens out on the streets, in the museums, like Shreya was saying. I mean, it's very experiential, and that's what a lot of students love. So thank you guys for sharing. Moya, what about you?
So I think when I think of highlights of my trip, of course there's so many, but the three ones that come to mind, firstly was similarly to Enrico and Shreya's programs. My program had 3 days of class and then essentially a 4-day weekend. So for one of those weekends, me and a really good friend that I made, we actually just decided to do a little trip around the north of England, since we were in Scotland, which is, if you don't know, it's north. Yeah. So we hopped on a train and just took it down into the north of England. And then for the next 3 days, just like went all around there. I think we went to like 3 different major cities, and all on the train, and then just staying in like Airbnbs at night. So that was really, really cool. It was really nice to have that sort of independence, and sort of to not only just prove it to myself, but also just kind of assert that independence in the world, that, you're capable of traveling around and being self-sufficient, even when you're in college, and even if you sometimes feel like a child. So that was really exciting. And then another one that was really fun and special was, this one was special because it really felt like one of those big moments that everyone talks about, like, oh, we went on study abroad and this was the big movie moment and all that. And so one of the trips that we did for our program, we were taking a poetry class. And so we drove in a bus from Edinburgh to the Lake District, which is like the far, far north of England. And if you ever heard of William Wordsworth, he's a very famous poet, and his residence was Grasmere. So we went and visited Grasmere, which was really cool. And then we were staying in a hostel overnight, and the hostel was situated right on the edge of a lake. So if this was the lake, like this was the hostel. And the first thing we did when we got there, I got out of the bus and I was like, guys, we have to jump in the lake. And everyone was like, no, that's so silly. I was like, oh, darn. And then everyone kind of went and got dinner, did their own thing. And then it was, I want to say it was like 10:30, 11 p.m. And I was just kind of sitting in my room, and my roommate got a text and she was like, oh, Moya, everyone's jumping in the lake. And I was like, what? And so I put my swimsuit on and ran down, and we all jumped in the lake. And it was such a great time. So that was just really cool and special. Yeah. So yeah, there was just so many things that were amazing. And then I made some very close friends that we're still really good friends. So just kind of the general community aspect of that, being someone who graduated high school in 2020 and then immediately went to college. My first whole quarter of college, or my first whole year of college, was online. And so I didn't really understand any of the community aspects of college or the social life or anything like that. It was all just like staying isolated in my room on a computer the whole time. So even when I went into my second year, it was still kind of similar vibes, and I didn't really have that developed sense of community. But going on a study abroad program and being with the same people for the entire period of time, it really helped me to develop that. And I realized I was like almost scared of it. But yeah, just having those people there for you was really, really cool. So I definitely enjoyed that a lot.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Rebecca, you spent a whole year abroad. I know you probably have a ton of highlights given the time. Can you give us one?
Yeah, I would just say being able to be a part, like truly be a part of a culture. That's one thing that I really wanted to do. I know it's kind of hard, like being on a trip, like even them, like they were there 3 months, which is also, you can truly experience what like it is to be in the culture. So I think that was the first time when I was able to like travel somewhere and not be a tourist. Like I felt like everyone was so welcoming. I just felt like experiencing a brand new culture that I've never seen before. It was just completely amazing. And also just I stayed, so the housing is different in every program, but my program, I stayed at the student hotel. It's just this really big hotel room. I mean, a big hotel where all the students have their own hotel room. And then you have a communal kitchen, a communal pool, and gym. So there's people from all over Europe who are studying at the University of Bologna. And it's just amazing to just walk down to the kitchen and you're just seeing like French students making their French croissants, or like the Spanish, and they're like making their paella. Like, just, it's just amazing. It was just like the first time I like truly felt like culture shock. Like, wow, I've never been in like a place with so many different cultures. You just learn so much and you just make so many amazing connections and friends. And that's like one of the major highlights from my experience abroad.
Nice. Yeah, and thank you. I appreciate you mentioning housing, because we do get questions from family about how will my child or student live. And yeah, as you mentioned, you could say in hotels or the flats off campus. A lot of students, a lot of programs that we have will offer on-campus residences or dorms, if you will. We have some programs that offer homestays. So it really depends on the program, and we have quite a variety of different scenarios that you can kind of find yourself in with regards to choices with housing. So yeah, definitely. I wanted to definitely make time for the financial question, right? Because a lot of families and parents ask, how expensive is it? That's the most often asked question I tend to get as a study abroad practitioner. And so I'm just curious in terms of, if any of you like to share, how did you use financial aid and maybe scholarships, if you were able to get some scholarships to fund your study abroad experience? Would anyone like to offer or share? I won't call on each of you. Anyone who'd like to go for it, go for it.
I could go. So one of the major reasons my parents didn't want me to study abroad was the finances. And I always heard that financial aid does transfer over well, for UC EAP programs anyway. So that's one of the reasons I chose UC EAP. Also, we offer the study abroad office, like we have a whole page where we talk about, like, we have a list of a bunch of scholarships that we offer. There are like nationwide scholarships as well as UCSD ones. I applied to literally every scholarship that I could and ended up saving money. I was able to travel around the whole year. I paid for my own rent. I literally lived abroad for an entire year, and I paid it all with financial aid and scholarships. So it's definitely doable. I always tell everyone, just apply to scholarships because it literally saved my life. And it's just the way to go. That's just what I learned.
Right on. That's awesome that you're able to actually, make it out so nicely. Yeah, I tell students that too. I'm like, yo, you're guaranteed not to get a scholarship if you don't apply for any scholarship. So make it part of the application. Right on. Anyone else want to share? All right. Okay, go for it, Enrico.
So yeah, I actually was this is another reason why too, like my family was also like, oh, like, are you sure you can study abroad? Like, and the finances it was a contributing factor as to why my parents didn't want me to study abroad. And initially it was really weird, but I do what is it called? I receive the CalVet benefits. So if you're not familiar with that, there's VA benefits, so Veteran Affairs, because my father is a Navy veteran. And so I initially emailed or got in contact with the people at VA Center, and initially they told me I could not use my benefits, which was really disheartening. But then I found the director of VA, and I just emailed him directly, and I said, hey, so someone on your team is telling me that I can't use my benefits for my global seminar. I think something's up because I'm pretty sure I should be able to, because it's during summer session, and summer session is included with financial aid. And he said, you are absolutely right. You absolutely can use your VA benefits. And I was like, that's beautiful. So I was able to use my CalVet fee waiver, if that applies to any of you. And then before coming into UCSD, I applied for so many scholarships. And I was able to obtain some, which was really great. And unfortunately, I didn't set up direct deposit because I didn't really know how to use that. So some of my scholarship checks came to my student mailbox, and I actually just used that money for my personal expenses. So keep that in mind too. I know like it would be better like to use it for your actual like program and tuition costs, but also keep in mind that you will need to have some personal expense budget allotted as well, because I mean you want to be able to to have money and your experience abroad. But yeah, that's pretty much my personal experience in terms of using financial aid.
Awesome, awesome. See the power of following up, that's great. I'm glad you did that. And so, yeah, I mean, with all of our programs, again, they vary a lot. Our UC San Diego programs, you can obviously use state and federal financial aid as well as UC based aid. For those programs that we work with that aren't affiliated with the UC, you can use your state and federal aid, but not any UC based aid. But that often is offset by a lot of scholarships. And so definitely a lot of moving parts. And we actually have a financial aid counselor embedded in our office who does a wonderful job of helping students kind of figure out the process. Anyone else want to share with that before we move on to the next one? Well, I am curious about this next question. I'm going to ask about health and safety, and I'm going to kind of frame it in the time of COVID, because all of you studied abroad during COVID. And, when COVID hit in 2020, we all shut down and it was horrible. And then when we started getting programs up and running again last year, I know that they came with some caveats. So I'm interested, any of you would like to share kind of like your on-site experience with regards to COVID and health and safety in general, because health and safety definitely is our highest priority. We want to make sure all of you are safe as students and we don't hit the news at all. And so with regards to health and safety and particularly COVID and how it was for you all, anyone want to share that experience? Yeah, go for it, Moya.
So nothing that happened on my trip was too dramatic, although within the second week, someone did catch COVID and it did kind of go around to a lot of people, including the professor. So it was certainly interesting. And for a solid week, a lot of people's like exploration over the weekend plans did get at least a little bit postponed, since we all wanted to be very careful. For the most part, though, it didn't play an enormous impact on the experience overall. Luckily, we were all as safe as we could be. So when we went on excursions during the 2 to 3 weeks when it was a bit of an issue, the program provider would remind us all like, hey, if everybody could just take a COVID test before we get on the bus to make sure we're safe, let's make sure we're wearing masks on the bus. All that kind of thing. And then when the professor did unfortunately catch COVID, we just did class over Zoom. So yeah, it didn't end up being a huge deal, although it was present. So yeah, if that was something that you were concerned about with study abroad, I definitely wouldn't worry too much about it. Because it was a thing, but it didn't end up being as big of a deal as it probably might have been if it was a year ago.
Right on. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for sharing that, Moya. Shreya.
So we had a similar experience. About almost half of our program did unfortunately catch COVID, all at the same time. You can guess how that happened. But there are a few resources we had. So when we first came in, we didn't just go to a country and start classes. Like we had orientation, and within the first week, we were told of resources. So ways we can make remote appointments with doctors or contact like nearby ones if we needed help, numbers we could use in emergencies. So all the basic stuff was covered. My professor, he was very accommodating to the fact that a lot of people got COVID, and whether you got COVID, he would help you out. So we did have a few classes on Zoom for 1 week, and he was very lenient with extensions and things like that, and very understanding. And as for safety, in that same orientation, we learned about, public transportation, what kinds tend to be more safe, what times tend to be more safe during the day, and basic phrases you can use, like in French, if you need to talk to someone. So the program kind of like has those like bases covered so that you're not just left completely alone. Yeah.
Mhm. Right on. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Rebecca, what was your experience?
So mine was interesting because not a lot of people got COVID while I was abroad. But that's probably because Italy had a lot of restrictions when it came to like being vaccinated and everything. You had a QR code that said you were vaccinated, and midway through my program, you had like 9 months, so you had to be vaccinated for 9 months, and randomly before the holidays they cut it down to 6 months. So a lot of I knew of like 2 students that had to go home and get vaccinated because like you couldn't do anything in the country if you weren't within the 6 months. So that was a little stressful. But when it came to like going to the hospital, I had a friend that I took her to the hospital, and like the ambulance came and they helped her, they gave her fluids and everything she needed. And then when she was done, it was so cheap. Like we were surprised. Like we were like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be like $600. The ambulance came. Like we were already stressed out. Ended up being like $50 because just healthcare is just so different abroad. And then we got reimbursed by our program, the money that we ended up paying. So it just depends. Also, I went to a lot of dermatologist appointments which are pricey. And again, my program paid for those because I think I get UC San Diego insurance. So if you get that, you'll get reimbursed. If anyone had questions about that.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's an important point. And just so that everyone knows, all of our programs do come with sort of this infrastructure of staff that help with any kind of student concern, health and safety, but also housing, academics, you name it. And so the important part with that is just communication, like our panelists have shared, just letting folks know on the program what they need. And then, everyone has an orientation that they go through. So a lot of bases are covered. So thank you all for sharing. I'm just kind of looking at the Q&A here. There's a couple questions. Rebecca, I think you're going to answer this one question. I can do it. Whatever. It's a lot of people wonder what year of college should you study abroad? When is the best time? And really, just because we have so many different choices, it really depends on your students' interests, sometimes their major. I know that some students can study abroad as early as the first summer of their first freshman year. They want to go for it, they want to get out there and maybe do some general education requirements or some courses for their major. Others may wait until their final year. We have some seniors or super seniors, right, who are going to study abroad. I think if you pull the data, the most common time to study abroad is junior year or your third year, kind of in the middle of things. As I mentioned earlier, summer is our most popular time to study abroad, followed by fall and then spring and then the year. And so we have options going all throughout the year. So it's really a matter of just asking having your student think about what time is best for them. A lot of times it's driven by academics. I work closely with the Jacobs School of Engineering. And so I know that with some of those students, we work a lot with timing. When's the best time? They can't get away during the year. Their classes are really impacted. And so we explore all the options available to them. Another person asked about the language, and I know that for our 3 global seminars panelists, all of the courses were conducted in English. and obviously Edinburgh. They have the heavy accent, but at least it's in English. And then Rebecca's was of course in Italian. But I would say a lot of our programs are offered in English. We do have some immersive language programs, though, of course. And so if your student wants to continue learning a language or learn a new language abroad, we do have some great programs that are involved with language immersion. But you can either study abroad in a program where everyone speaks English because it's an English-speaking country, or we have some programs where the language is not in English. They speak another language, but they teach the courses in English. And then our third option would be, of course, language immersion, where you're studying a language, you're really living it and doing it day by day. So great question. Thank you for that. Since we're on, and I think we only have about 4 minutes left, so I want to touch on this one question. Parent and family support. Did your parents support your decision to go abroad? And I would love some thoughts on that. How can parents and families support this decision? Enrico, would you like to share?
Sure. So I know it's a very tolling process in terms of first of all, hearing that your student wants to go abroad, because maybe there's an emotional factor in which you're like, oh my goodness, my student is going to be in a different country, how is that going to work? I'm not going to have direct communication to my student, but then there's also the financial aspect, which I feel like I had both of, and the academic aspect, of course, which I feel is also very important, because you have to consider oh, well, is this going to keep me on track to graduate, or am I just taking this just to go abroad? You know what I mean? So I think one of the main kickers, especially for convincing my parents to allow me to go abroad, first of all, I kind of just told them, I was I'm going to go abroad. That's one thing. I will be going abroad. And second, I should have made a PowerPoint slideshow to really but I told them that it actually takes care of one of my university requirements, and it takes care of one of my college requirements, which I think Shreya might talk about. But there is a university-wide requirement called the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion requirement. And of course, not all programs will be able to satisfy that requirement, but my program, the Jazz in Paris Global Seminar, did in fact satisfy the diversity, equity, inclusion requirement. So that did help me out a lot. And then of course the financial aspect, I was able to use my CalVet benefits, and also my parents, they've been taking me abroad since I was young. Since I could remember, I was traveling with my parents, going to different countries, going to different and introducing myself into new environments. So they didn't have any second thoughts about sending me abroad after. But I don't know if Shreya wanted to talk about the practicum requirement.
Yeah, Shreya, do you wanna weigh in?
Yeah. So Enrico and I are both in 6th college currently, and it used to be called the practicum requirement. It got renamed to the experiential learning requirement. But basically, this was a college-wide thing where we would either do an internship, do research, study abroad, or take special courses. But it was basically supposed to be this big interactive part of our college experience in one way or another. So not all study abroad programs or courses are automatically set to be approved. I think they need to see the courses first, so I would check that. But a lot of them are. And Enrico and I were fortunate in that we chose one that did fulfill that. So since we were went to a foreign country to great courses and engage with people and their culture, it fulfilled that requirement for us. So that came in handy. And that's actually what I used to convince my parents.
Nice, right on. Yeah, and oh, I'm looking at the time. We only have 1 minute left. This isn't fair. But yeah, you're right. Global seminars are UC San Diego courses, so they count automatically. And then all the other courses like UCAP and so on, students will just work with their professors, their advisors to make sure that the courses that they're going to take will come back successfully. Any last, Moya, I know your hand was up. Do you want to kind of end us with your parents and family decision?
I can do it quick. Basically similar situation. I just went to my dad and said, hey, this fulfills some requirements. And he said, okay, but like, I unfortunately don't really qualify for any, need-based financial aid. So he was like, okay, well, I'm not just gonna like pay for you to study abroad. And I said, okay, well, I planned out my whole schedule and it looks like I'll be able to knock two quarters off the end that you won't have to pay for now. And he said, okay, fine, but you have to pay for your flights and anything that you want to pay for when you get there. And luckily I have worked a job here for a long time. And then also last summer, since I'm an Irish citizen, I went and stayed in Ireland all year and had a summer job. So luckily I had actual like money in euro, which transferred very easily to pound sterling. So that ended up working out for me. But the extent of my parental support was he was there for me in terms of like, this is a great experience for you to exert your independence. And then most of the kind of like community emotional support that I got was from my peers. So I think that that just kind of speaks to the peer support that you will end up having if you go abroad.
Nice, right on. Hey, I want to thank all of my panelists. I could talk to you all night about studying abroad. This is good stuff. I'm excited, and I hope our audience definitely took something away from it. I think you all shared some great insights. So again, thank you. Dan, back to you.
Thanks, Jay. And again, thank you all to our amazing panelists for joining us tonight. Before I let all of our attendees leave, I just want to quickly review that we do have another virtual homecoming session upcoming this Thursday, all about health professions, medical school, pursuing any career in the medical field. Our Health Beat career advisors will be spending some time talking about what needs to happen in a student's academic journey starting in year 1 all the way through year 4 and applying to medical school. And again, a big thank you to you, Jay, the amazing students that joined us tonight as panelists. And thank you all attendees for joining us for this virtual session for Homecoming Family Weekend. We hope to either see you virtually Thursday or hopefully in person this weekend for Homecoming Family Weekend, as we are so excited to welcome back just, like a few thousand families. We're really excited. So again, stay connected with us through any point throughout the year at our socials that are on the screen, at our email address, helpline phone number, and that YouTube channel where all recordings of any virtual presentations we do and webinars will be posted. Again, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, morning, or day from wherever you're joining us, and stay well. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.